Rules of Procedure and Organization of the Council of the County of Hawaii relating to certificates of merit, memorials, and expressions of condolences. Amends Item 6 of Rule Number 23, stating that all certificates which do not have a major impact on established policies and procedures or which do not affect a significant number of people and are received less than 6 days before the regular meeting date of the council may be considered at such meeting. Reference Communication 89, introduced by Mr. Kern.
Mr. Kern.
Thank you, Chair.
Motion
motion to approve 43-13.
Second.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Kern.
This basically changed it back to the way that it was before we reconvened this council session. I think it gives us the flexibility that we need when things come about to be able to put out a certificate. So I think just simple housekeeping makes sense, and no need to spend any extra time on this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Kern. Any other discussion? Ms. Wille, followed by, Ms. Ford?
Go ahead. I do have a concern. The reason we said no less than 7 days prior to the scheduled meeting is so that we could schedule ample amount of time before we get into the public stuff. And that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. And I understand why Mr. Kern is trying to go back. But it seems to me that this should say, leave the original language there and accept if it does not have a major impact and follow the rest of it through. I think we really should be trying to get these certificates, in at least ahead of time to the scheduled meeting so that they can be on the agenda. That was the whole purpose. We wanted to have them on the agenda. And I do understand that we have unusual circumstances, for instance, the Newtown massacre that we had to deal with. So I don't have a problem having an exception if it's not going to have a major impact on the public. Most certificates do not have a major impact anyway, but there may be certificates that might. I don't know. So my concern about this is I'm not going to fight this one, but my concern is we're trying to give the public notice that these certificates are coming up, and that requires that we have these things in before the agenda is printed. And the only time we should do an exception, in my opinion, is if it's something really unusual, then yes, we will make an exception. So I'm a little concerned about this, but I want to hear what the rest of the council thinks.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Ford. Ms. Wille?
Yes, I basically support what Ms. Ford said, and I think it's all a balancing. It's not that I disagree with Councilmember Kern that we want to do the best we can in terms of the certificates. And at the same time, having testified many times and having sat for many hours, and it may be, what's happening down in Ocean View or here may not be of that importance to me, but whereas there were some things that were actually North Kohala that there were a lot of people that would have, if it had been on the agenda, would have come and would have been present. So, and most of all, accountability to the public in terms of the value of their time. Everyone sitting here and waiting is costly. I mean, all of these are economies of cost. So in trying to balance this, what I would like to see is leaving the language we have here and saying something along the following lines. However, where time is of the essence, the chair may allow for presentation of a certificate at any time prior to the day of council meeting, so long as that presentation is not likely to affect the scheduled time set forth in the published agenda. So I would like to try to get a little more balance between all of these legitimate interests. So thank you. And I'd make a motion that we, I can make it and no.
It needs to be in writing if you're going to amend it.
Yeah, okay.
Mr. Kern?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, thank you. I'd just like to respond to that. Basically, we're saying the same thing, that we'd like to have them agendized. It gives us the opportunity to schedule when our meeting starts at the proper time to be considerate of the people that are coming to watch and participate in this, but also gives us the flexibility when something comes up that we're able to put something out there. This does that. it's up to us as an individual council member to submit our certificates or our merits at a proper time so we could get those on the agenda so more public could be involved in it. That's up to us. But if there's something that comes up and it's within that time frame, then we have the option to actually put that out there in the case of something unknown comes up where we need to do that. So it's really, again, it's up to us as council members to be responsive and to act accordingly. If we make that amendment, it's still the exact same thing.
Well, can I respond to that?
Go ahead.
Maybe I'm the only one, but when I see that the norm is get it in 7 days ahead, I try to abide by that. And if it then says, if we were to change some of the language, except that these conditions, then I think that it really holds us more to that. Right now, you're cutting out the norm of submitting it in no less than 7 days. You're crossing that language out. And we're crossing out the language that really gives the public the respect for their time. So I would just like to, we're balancing, we're crafting this. How do we quite get it to where we all feel comfortable? But we could have all of these various certificates come in and we're already an hour or 50 minutes ahead. So I like having the norm be what we agreed to at our organizational meeting and put what you're saying into an exception.
Mr. Clerk, Kern, you still have the floor.
Thank you. Yeah. The language doesn't give the public the fair shake. It's us as council members that do that. That's if we're responsible as a council member, this has no effect, but it does give us the flexibility that we need. I think that anybody doing a certificate would prefer to have it on an agenda, would prefer to have it out there and be notified of the public. But if we have that in there and we change it again, it's still the same thing. It's up to us as our individual council members to act and behave accordingly.
If I may add, I'll get to further discussion, but just as a comment, Ms. Ford can help me with this too, because generally speaking, we used to take the certificates as they came, but generally speaking, there would be might take a half an hour. I mean, that'd be like the longest, maybe a little bit more, maybe 40 minutes at the longest, because we actually try and schedule them informally in the past so that it wouldn't be all bunched up in one day. I know that the chairs has done that in the past, whether it's a known fact or not. But I think the main thing is that we allow the public a reasonable expectation, which is part of what Ms. Wille is saying, as to when public testimony will start. So today's agenda was an example of that, where we scheduled it at 9:50. And as we all know, we were ahead of schedule by about 15-20 minutes, which is fine. But Ms. Wille, that's what you wanted to make sure that we're not wasting the public's time by watching. So I think we're all in agreement that we want to get to the same place. And by the same token, it's also good to have the certificates ready 7 days ahead of time, because in the past we would be signing them either the morning of or the day before. Ms. Ford knows that, and it's been a kind of a frantic thing. So that I think is good too. Whether it needs to be on the agenda, and then that's I think up for discussion, because it doesn't necessarily affect. It's not board business, so to speak, right? So
can I ask you a question? What you mean by it doesn't necessarily need to be on the agenda?
Well, because in the past we didn't put the certificates on the agenda.
Okay.
Because we didn't vote on the certificates as we didn't do today. I mean, we're presenting it, and it's an accommodation or recognition. But so technically speaking, so now we're putting the certificates on the agenda just to let the public know this is what we're doing, which is good, which is fine. I don't have a problem with that. But I guess the question becomes the mechanics of how we do it, because what Mr. Kern is saying is that
we can't. We can't put them on the agenda unless we have them that amount of time.
Correct. So I think
So we lose that. Lose that agendizing.
So maybe we keep the 7-day requirement. I'm just trying to think this through. And then, Mr. Kern, do you have any objections to keeping the 7-day requirement for certificates being presented so that they're still on the agenda?
No, it's the same thing though.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if you have the 7 days in there and we have the provision that if it doesn't have
then we don't have
major impact, and as day 6, you do it. I mean, that's why I say it's the language isn't going to do. If we keep it the way that it is now, that language does work to make sure that it comes on the agenda, but doesn't give us any flexibility to leave the 7 days in there. It still has the same effect if the remainder of my amendment is in there.
Okay.
So again, that's why I say this isn't going to necessarily fix it. It's going to be us as individuals to put it out there.
And I'm willing to, let me just say, I'm willing to go with what he has, and let's try it. And if there's a problem,
we can
raise
fix
my
it
hand.
again. Okay. Mr. Onishi, followed by Ms. Ford.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The way I look at it, and it's like accountability of the council member. It's how they prepared to get their certificate 7 days prior. Okay, and so if you're a council member that's going to be delayed and kind of lax, and now you miss the 7 days, then it's like you're Kuliana, right? And then it's up to you to go and contact your community to let them know that you're going to be presenting the certificate. Okay, but that's what I look at. If anything, if there's any other thing, maybe we could put it in where it's all certificates may be submitted instead of shall be submitted. And to me, that's a change, but it doesn't even have to, because it's basically what this is. It's accountability of the council member. It's their responsibility to be able to do it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Onishi. Ms. Ford?
Okay, I'm going to try for middle ground here. This is going to sound a little strange. Normally, our council meetings start at 9 a.m. Now, that may change a little during the budget cycle, because, but what if we were to set all certificates would be presented in the 30 minutes earlier than the council meeting actually starts. So on the agenda, it will say 8:30 certificates, if any, 9 o'clock, and if there's none, well, we don't show up because there's nothing there. And 9 o'clock, that's when the council meeting starts. So that would help the public know, if you want to come and hear certificates, come at 8:30. If you want to come only for the council start, you come at 9 o'clock. And then it doesn't matter, if it's 6 days or 7 days. It's not an issue anymore.
But it's not good. Go ahead.
I'm just trying to hit a middle ground.
Okay. Ms. Eoff, you have
Yes, I have a question for Mr. Kern. So was your intention that certificates would still be placed on the agenda if they're received timely enough?
Yeah, that would be the intention.
But then if somebody turns one in late, they may still be able to present it.
Correct.
So I'm kind of wondering why we are... you're just saying we don't need to state that. It's just automatically going to go on the agenda.
If a council member wants their certificate on the agenda, they have to submit it in the time frame to get it on the agenda. That's what it is.
But if they're received less than 6 days before the meeting, they may still be...
They would still
be presented.
Presented, just they wouldn't be on the agenda. It would give flexibility.
Okay, thank you.
Question for Ms. Ford. So would that mean that all of our meetings start at 8:30 then, pretty much, because we wouldn't necessarily be aware of what was coming through, especially with this language?
The middle ground has a downside.
Yeah, I don't want to lock us into a meeting time, because that's going to be subject to change depending upon the circumstances. So, but anyway, Mr. Onishi.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Like what was just mentioned earlier between Councilwoman Eoff and Councilmember Kern is that, okay, if it's past the deadline, it's basically up to the chair to put it on. Right. Okay, so if the chair feels that it's too busy, that day the agenda is too busy, he's not going to put it on. Okay, and so it's not guaranteed that you're going to get it on. So if you want it to be guaranteed to put it on the agenda, you have to submit it 7 days prior. And it's the bottom line.
Right.
Okay, and then to make it at 8:30, I think that's going to be hard for the public. So we got to start at 9, because that's been the common time. And then maybe at 9:30, then testimony can be taken. Yeah. That's what I would suggest from Ms. Councilwoman Wille. And I suggested that.
Thank you, Mr. Onishi. I think Ms. Wille is willing to try this out, see how it goes, and if it's a problem, we can always change it as well. But I think we're headed in the right direction. So thank you, Ms. Wille, for doing that. And okay, any other discussion? If not, Mr. Clerk.
Ms. Eoff.
Aye.
Ms. Ford.
Aye.
Mr. Iligan.
Aye.
Mr. Kanuha.
Aye.
Mr. Kern.
Aye.
Mr. Onishi. Ms. Poindexter.
Aye.
Ms. Wille.
Aye.
Chair Yoshimoto.
Aye.
Chair, you have 9 ayes.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Resolution 43-13 is approved. Council members, I would like to